Welcome to the Lead Pedal Podcast with your host, Bruce Outridge, where he talks all things trucking. Now let's get rolling.
Hey, everybody. How are we doing today? Welcome to another edition of the Lead Pedal Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about driver employment. Is there a driver shortage? Where did all the drivers go? Why we have so many? Where do they all go? Well, there's a big confusion about job shortage and driver shortage, which we're going to address today. And we're also going to talk about, well, where are the jobs? If you're looking for one, where are the jobs? Hey, let me tell you about where you can get some jobs here. Bison Transport, they're looking for owner-operators. They're looking for truck drivers. They have, they've just won the award for the safest fleet again this year. And they're looking for you. They were offering sign-on bonuses. I don't know if they've extended that. They were going until the end of March. If you call today, maybe you can get going. But I can tell you what, look for all the jobs that they've got available, and you can start by going to bisondriving.com. That's where you can learn all about them, figure out what's happening, what's going on, and all of that kind of stuff. All right, let's dive into our episode. Here we go.
Be sure to share the podcast on your favorite social media channels.
All right, so where are all the jobs? Where did they go? Where did they go? You know, there's a lot of people who say there's a driver shortage. There's a lot of experts who say there is no driver shortage. I am currently reading a book by my friend Gord McGill, who just put out a book called The End of the Road. If you've not heard of this book, I want you to go back and listen to some of the episodes that we had back on, when did we have him on? Back at the end of March he was on. I think like that third week of March he was on, around the 23rd there. So go check him out if you want to find out all about End of the Road. We had some good discussions about the state of the industry as well. And we're going to talk today a little bit about driver employment. That's what our series is this week. We're going to talk about driver employment, changes in trucking, and getting driver ready, getting ready for that job. I see this done so long, and there's been so many discussions in the industry right now. I mean, the topic we're talking about right now is Red Seal. That's because the roads have gotten so dangerous that the veteran drivers are leaving. The training is so low because that came out of Melt. And actually, you're not going to, by the time you hear this, it's gone. But the day that I'm recording this, it's green shirt day. I'm not wearing a green shirt because I don't have one. But it's Green Shirt Day, and that's because of the Humboldt. Now, the green shirt is for something else. It's to do with the Humboldt crash, but not in the trucking part of it. But Scott Thomas, whose son was one of the hockey players killed in the crash, has been going around talking about the importance of proper training and the industry and safe driving and all that kind of stuff. So I just thought I'd mention that, but that's one of the reasons. Like, it's, you know, the jobs are still there. Our industry has become so degraded that people are afraid to work in it. I'm hearing a lot of people who say, you know what, I don't want to tell people I'm in trucking. I'm telling you I'm in trucking. I'm still in trucking. I love being in trucking, always have. So I'm not trying to avoid it, but I do want it to kind of save it. It saved me. So I want to kind of save you, which is what we're trying to do here. So the big question, is there a shortage? Why are so many drivers trying to struggle to get jobs? A lot of it has to do with the whole economy, the way things are done. I can tell you from a business owner that having the minimum wage go up to $16, $17, I think it just went up again. So it's like $17 for minimum wage for someone with no experience. Companies can't afford that to bring someone on and train them. So now that's the living wage. And I can tell you can't live on $17 an hour. So, you know, drivers are going, well, if I've been doing this for 30 and 40 years and my max pay is $25 an hour, which it's been at, if you go by the mile, you know, I used to do that calculation by the mile, that if you ran, 500-600 miles a day, what you can legally log and legally run is about 500 miles a day, which is roughly about $25 an hour. So, you know, it's like, okay, so you work in the city and a lot of companies are going to the hourly pay. So now they go, okay, we're going to pay you $25 an hour. Well, I've been doing this for 40 years. At what point do you get, you know, and if you go into the office, you actually lose money a lot of times. So it gets to be where there's really nowhere for anybody to go. So people are either retiring out, or if they've got a pretty good deal, they're just staying with it as long as they can. Veteran drivers are going, you know what, we're going to go and do something else because things aren't safe on the road. Middle class I won't say middle class, but drivers that are kind of in that middle area where they're probably like 5 to 10 years of experience. They're going, there's not enough money here to keep my family going based on what's going on. And then you've got new people coming in who want to make $40 an hour, but they have no experience. So it's kind of a mixed hodgepodge of the whole thing. There used to be a plan where people went into owner-operator and you became a business owner and all that. That is gone now. Owner-operators are losing their trucks. Companies are losing their trucks because of the way the industry is going. So we need to kind of clean it up somehow. I think Red Seal is a great answer. There's other people who have offered opinions here. A lot of veterans are talking about how to clean it up. It's going to take all of us, to be honest with you. It's going to really take all of us to get this done. And I'm not sure everybody's going to be as invested if it hurts their pocketbook to help the industry as a whole. So we'll see how that goes. That's kind of where things are. So where are the trucking jobs right now? Well, again, that depends on what you want to do and what you. I can tell you the jobs that are out there because of the shipping market are the container market, which does not pay very well. Has a lot of problems with that, especially in today's economy because containers are all about economy. So that's not really happening. The dedicated lane stuff, the drivers that I see that are happy in trucking kind of have figured out their own thing. They're not trying to get the most miles, or they're just kind of running really steady. They got a good deal where they know what they're doing. They're happy to go. They maybe got a good truck. They're not trying to break the world and come out with something new. Let's just stay steady and do our thing and keep our head down. And that's a lot of them. That's how they're doing it. Some are looking to move up and get out. I was one of those drivers where I always wanted to move up, and when I stopped finding a way to move up is when I decided to move out. And that's what's happening with a lot of other drivers. They're not seeing a future in whatever they're doing, and so they're bowing out. They're going into other industries or going to find other things to do. And unfortunately, some of them are going into basics, like they're going into construction or something, which is kind of a lateral move as opposed to a nut move, but I'll leave that alone. That's a personal decision for sure. Dedicated lanes used to be something that we all kind of got into, and I'm not sure how much of that stuff is still around. I think it is for some companies. People want to get on something steady where they understand where they're going. The last mile delivery, so those short deliveries, the city deliveries, that's where there's a lot of jobs, but not everybody can handle them. That's a whole stressful time away. Everybody wants those because they all want to be home. But then they don't like their start time at 3 a.m. and they don't like the city's busy and you got to deal with the traffic and all those kind of stuff. I always said, I'd rather be on the highway. I'm out of here, And then there's the specialized freight. That's, of course, always been where I've been telling people for 40 years of doing this now that you've got to specialize. If you haven't specialized, if you're running, just van freight from, car part A to car part B, car plan A, car plan B, you're not going to be sustainable, and you're also not going to be. As soon as technology comes along that takes away that job, you are going to be in some real trouble. So you really need to specialize. So dedicated freight, if your company is doing something dedicated, that always worked well for me, but that can get boring too. You have to really watch that. But it can kind of give you that leg up above everybody else. Last mile delivery, or city delivery or delivering, that's going to be probably more sustainable over time as technology goes. The railroad is looking to improve, the airplanes, everything is looking, all the long haul stuff, they're figuring out how can we do this without actually moving stuff around. So that's the big thing. And then specialized freight, whether it be heavy haul or fuel, something that there's going to be a lot of jobs for there. We've seen the spot market. We've seen people, because of the spot market, they're losing their trucks and stuff. It's because they built their whole business on something that is not really it's spot market was always meant to be fill in. It wasn't meant to be your whole business. You should have contracts, you should have steady customers, and then you fill in when needed with that other stuff. But a lot of people, especially in the pandemic, built based on the spot market because there was so much freight going around. And now that it's leveling out, people are having trouble with that. So some of the issues that we're having there, and the impact of economic and freight demand, and of course, every time things change, especially if you're dealing with anything to do with the economy, where the economy drives it, you're going to find that every time there's a decision made somewhere else, it's changing how things are done. So but probably the biggest thing, that's how you can kind of move through your career a little bit. When we come back, I'm going to talk about where we're losing some of our drivers and why. And we've talked a little bit about it. I'll talk a little bit more about it here in a minute. But before we do that, I want to tell you about a great place right now that is about to open up, and it's a new truck stop in Woodstock, Ontario. And this is by Harnwa Energies. It's going to be an Esso fuel card stop. They have fuel, they have propane, they're going to have driver restaurant, they're going to have convenience stores, they're going to have maintenance on site, they've got a CAT scale on that site as well, lots of parking for trucks, so it's going to be a place where you can kind of get in, get everything you need right there, but it's going to be an SO fuel card. So if you haven't got your fuel card, go to harnwaenergies.com. They're based out of Quebec, but they've been around since 1958, and they are now expanding into Ontario, and this is going to be a great truck stop on the 401 at exit 230 in Woodstock. Now there's already been many truck stops there, so many of you probably know that location already. This is going to be a great one there. So harnwaenergies.com for sure. All right, we come back, we'll share with you what's going on as far as losing drivers.
By far my favorite station.
You're the best. Oh yeah,
I love you guys.
All right, so where are all the drivers going? Where are all the drivers going? I can tell you the drivers are leaving faster than they're getting hired. That's what's happening. I can tell you, especially if you're running routes like Highway 17, 11 up north, out west, it's just gotten so dangerous that people are just saying, you know what, we've had enough. So, especially with the big carriers, the high turnover rates have always been going there. In fact, isn't it sad that it's almost 100% at some carriers. But as far as lifestyle, the younger generation doesn't want to be away from home. They're looking for ways. We've seen this happening over the last, probably the last 10 years anyway. We've seen it where carriers are trying to change their runs so that they, I know, for instance, Bison, one of the people that are sponsoring on our show, when the days of hiring and going on to open board, that's how a lot of us got hired. Now you hire by run. You actually know what the run is and you apply for that run, and that's how you get hired. And you stay on that run until something happens where that run goes and you change to another run, something like that, which is exactly what's happening. People don't want the time away from home anymore. I'm hearing this from more and more young people. I'm not sure how they're going to make money, but that's what they want. And then they don't like the irregular schedules. They want something. People want 9 to 5. Does not happen in trucking. I'm not sure why people think, and this is why, is this really an industry for you if you're not sure exactly what's going on? Compensation. All right. So this is why people are leaving. A lot of the times we have not, Gord did it in his book. He did it, forget how the calculation was, but basically, if you go for inflation and all that stuff, we're losing money. Like our pay raises have not kept up to inflation and kept up to the market and all of that kind of stuff. Still, to this day, we are still talking about waiting time and detention time. Now, I drove for 25 years. I've been out of the truck for almost 20 now, still in this industry, and we are still talking about the same thing that we were talking about in 1985. So this has not gone away. I don't know why it hasn't gone away. Not sure what the solution is. I know some companies have tried to pay by hour and all that kind of stuff, but really, the office people wouldn't go and work at the office for free all the time, So now I was paid salary at companies. I've been paid mileage. I've been paid by percentage, and I've been paid by the hour. And I can say that they all kind of have their flaws, no matter which way you're going to do it. If you're with a good company, by the mile actually works. I worked for a company where we made pretty good miles because they took all that detention stuff away. They were able to keep you moving. If you're with a carrier that does not seem to have their system in place, and some of them waiting is what they do. I've worked for carriers where that's kind of their goal, is to get you to wait, because that keeps their trucks out and about. And I'm not going to, it's just terrible. Lack of respect, poor treatment. That's probably one of the biggest things. I think people just have enough. You just have enough, especially if you've been a veteran driver. Now, sometimes it's the driver's fault. I'm going to play both sides there because I've been a manager, I've been a supervisor, I've also been a driver for many years. And yeah, there's two sides to the tale every single time. What a lot of drivers don't understand is they don't understand the difference from having a carrier, like on the carrier side and the management side, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And then people just get burnt out. And this is the problem with the road. This is what happened to me too. When I quit being a supervisor, I just had enough of trucking. I just needed a break. So I started art business. I'm not telling you should go start an art business, but that's what I did. But people just want a break. So they leave for a while and then they come back. And even now, I still got my license. I drive the odd truck around just for fun, but I'm not doing it professionally. But you miss it. I've missed it. I had a lot of fun on the road, a lot of camaraderie on the road. I miss it, but you know what? Not enough to get back into it. And that's what's happening with a lot of the people. So you get burnout, you get mental health strain, all that kind of stuff. So do we have a driver shortage or not? I think we could basically talk about that until we're blue in the face and still not coming. I'm thinking it's more of a retention problem. And with new people coming in, some of these carriers, and Gord was really good at outlining this in his book. There's a lot of people making money on recruits. They're not trying to retain anybody. They're actually making more money by having people come through the system, because that's how they're getting their funding. So the good carriers have, there's carriers you don't hear about. They don't have retention problems. You don't see them at events. Their trucks are always full. There's a lot of carriers like that. So a lot of them are smaller. They don't advertise. You don't know who they are. They put their money into a Peterbilt before they, put it into a brochure. Those kind of things. So for a lot of companies, it's about retention. It's about getting themselves set up properly, so that you don't have this churn and burn, right? Where you get hired and then the guy's gone. Like a lot. The training school has been a real problem in the industry. That melt stuff that opened up totally messed up the whole training system, and then they took away the stuff that was actually working, so that nothing's working now. So we're talking about that. That's part of the Red Seal thing that we're talking about. But experienced drivers are leaving, the new drivers are coming in, and of course you've got more accidents, more incidents, because you don't have the experience and the skills technique. And then probably the biggest one they say is people just mismatched between job expectations and reality is, and we keep telling them, it depends on what you're doing in the industry, but really, if you're not prepared to kind of, and the people are brought in a lot of times through either immigration or through something else, and they're saying, hey, you know what, we were told we can get a job. Trucking never was meant to be a job. We never once said, hey, go get a job in trucking just to get a job. Because it does take so much time and expertise and time away from home and all that. You either get into it and you really love it, or you get out of it and you never want to see it again. And I had a guy who told me back in my day, he says, man, you know what? I tried it for 2 years, didn't make any money. If I had listened to him, I would have not had a 40-year career. So I don't know what, we'll leave that alone as to how that works, but it just shows you got to be invested in whatever you are doing. So we're going to talk about things that changed in in the trucking industry in our next episode, so make sure you subscribe, and we'll get this thing rolling. Before we roll out, though, let me tell you a little bit about RS2000 Tax Services. If you're an owner-operator or a truck driver, or in the farming industry, although I don't think we have a lot of farmers that are listening to this podcast, RS2000 Tax Services can help and make sure that you keep money in your pocket the way you're supposed to. We use them ourselves. They specialize in trucking and farming. They know all of the things to look for, the things that you can write off, and all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you're dealing with people who know exactly what they're doing. Trust me, I had another accountant who was not in trucking, and even though I'm not a trucking business per se, we are still in the industry doing a lot of those things. So if I could urge you one thing, deal with people that know exactly what they're talking about, not just the laws and the regulations, but also the industry. It's going to change your life. RS2000tax.com. Make sure you tell them we sent you, and we will see you next time, my friends. Hey, subscribe on whatever you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast on, and we will catch you later. Be safe out on the roads. Bye.
This has been another episode of the Lead Pedal Podcast. For more information or to subscribe to the podcast, visit theleadpedalpodcast.com, and be sure to follow the podcast on Facebook and Twitter.